The House of Mystery presents Inside Writing, the radio show where authors discuss their writing process in all genres.
Welcome back into the House of Mystery. Today we have a publisher joining us, so we're moving on up. Today we have Henzel from Rattling Good Yarns Press. Thank you for being here, Ian.
Well, as always, it's a pleasure, Alan.
So, how is publishing going? How is it being a small publisher in these turbulent times? And also, I guess, with the times of, Amazon and all the other things going on, what's it like?
Wow, there's the whole interview right there. That one question. Well, I think when last, you had me on the show, was maybe about 18 months ago, possibly a little bit longer than that. And I had just taken over running Rattling Good Yarns Press. So how are things for a small indie publisher? Things are going very well for us. We now have 11 titles that we've published, and we're coming out with about another 9 this year, which would give us a total of well about 20 titles. So I know what I'm working on all the way through Christmas of 2021. Crazy, wow. Isn't it?
Yeah. So how do you gauge what kind of business you think you're going to get? Like there's so many people now that are self-publishing, right? They're just putting it up, Amazon or Ingram Sparks or however they want to do it. So what do you think? Like, do you worry about dilution? Like, there's so much out there coming out. The competition must be really hard.
Well, it's all about I think it's really true. I mean, a lot of people are publishing, probably more than ever. I think it's all about, the quality of what you're publishing. And we're a very small independent publisher. And it's interesting because we're starting to get recognition in the LGBTQ authors community. And I'm having award-winning authors coming to us because, it's getting harder and harder to get published. And so, for instance, I know you had interviewed Philip Gamboni about a couple of months ago, I think, on his book, as far as I can tell, Finding My Father in World War II. And I think that's a classic example. He had gone to other publishers before Rattling Good Yarns Press, and they said that they liked it, but they didn't know what the market was. They couldn't see what the market was for the book. And I get that, because if you're even a small publisher where you're hiring an editor, a designer, someone to do layout, you've sunk quite a bit of money into the production of the book. So you have to sell a certain number of copies or be confident that you're going to sell a certain number of copies to just break even. And we're not, so let's say you've sunk with salaries and everything, you've sunk, $5,000-$6,000 into it. You probably have to sell about maybe, maybe you're going to get $10 a book. So you have to sell quite a few copies before you'll even break even on a title. We operate on a very low overhead model. So I keep our overhead very, very low. So that means we could take risks. because our break-even point is that much lower than a larger publisher. So, for example, one of our best-selling books has been Phil Gamboni's, as far as I can tell, and it's selling extremely well, and through all channels, including Amazon, and including, where people buy the book directly from us. So we could take, so net is we could take more risks and we can bring out quality works. Other publishers, there is a focus on quality, but they have to make sure that they're going to sell enough copies to cover their costs.
Yeah, it's pretty complicated. You can take a chance and take a loss, but I guess that's any business, right? So, so when someone sends you a book, how do you know it's going to be one that you're going to do? Like, are you strictly sticking to the LGBTQ community, or are you going to go outside of that?
No, we're going to stay within our niche, because I think that's where, our hearts lie and our talents lie. So, interesting, we usually don't accept submissions. I've just recently opened it up where we will, but we typically work off of word of mouth. So it's kind of like a speakeasy, and someone knocks on the door and says, "Joe sent me." So we really get authors referring authors. Because of course, while overhead is low, we still have, amount of time that we invest. And, to read a manuscript takes time. So we're usually more receptive to where it's been a referral. We ask for a synopsis, and if we like the synopsis, we'll ask for the first 2 or 3 chapters. And if we like that, we'll ask for the full manuscript.
So what's the most important thing? Is it the literary components, or is it more the story they're trying to tell?
Both. And the reason why I hesitated a bit, because you have when it comes to fiction that falls into the category of literary, and fiction that falls into the category of commercial. Commercial being more plot driven, there is some internal character, what's going on internally with the character can move the plot, but it's much more plot driven. Literary is much more the emotions of the character driving it forward. We do both. We are looking at doing some what I would call light fiction to balance out some of our more literary works. But it's always quality, quality of content. Be it a book that was created in a more commercial vein or a more literary vein, they have to be good stories, good plots, well written. Quality still matters.
That's interesting. So now, okay, so your focus in the community itself. So each of your books has some sort of, I don't know, let's say some sort of at least a character or some sort of meaning directed at the LGBTQ community, right? It's not.
Yes, they don't always have to be central. So as far as I can tell, Finding My Father in World War II by Philip Gamboni is a memoir, but it's his reaction as a gay man who received a 4F because he told them he was gay. So I think he went for his draft board induction. Must have been about 1970, 71, and he admitted that he was gay. And so they did not draft him. But, so there is that dynamic playing against him trying to get to know his father better, and his father who did serve. There is a gay thread in it, I should say, or an LGBTQ thread. So all of our books would have some LGBTQ influence in the book.
So how do you feel now that you've done this for about 2 years or so, something like that? Are you getting out of it what you think you planned? Like this is, like a couple of years ago when you were seeing this and you were taking this over, are you kind of where you thought you'd be, I guess, 2 years from now?
We're a little bit ahead of where I thought we would be.
Oh, okay. So things are better.
Things are better, certainly in terms of recognition. About 2 years ago, I was at a point of, so I think I shared with you last time that I retired from a 42-year corporate career, and I was a project manager. I was a product manager for software. So I used to figure out what needed to be developed or how we needed to keep software competitive with what our competitors were doing. I kind of approach Rattling Good Yarns Press in a similar vein. So I look at our catalog as our quote-unquote portfolio, and how are we going to expand and round out the portfolio of books? Because I think there's a halo effect that one book influences another and could generate sales as people become, more interested in what we're publishing. So we're ahead in that we are the catalog has been diversified. We only had 1 or 2 authors. We now have much more than that. I believe we have 10 authors now. And so I think we're a little bit ahead. We're right on target, if not a little bit ahead of where I wanted to be.
Wow, that's good. So where do you see this going? Is this going to go someplace you never thought it would be, or do you see doing this in another 10 years still? And where do you see a publishing business like this going?
Well, I would like to see us continue to add to our portfolio and expand. I certainly want us to have more authors that represent the broader section of the LGBTQ community. So I'd like us to be even more diverse than we are now. And, I see us I see us perhaps achieving more recognition. But it's an interesting question you ask, because I tend to keep the long term in mind, but it doesn't overwhelm what we're doing at the moment. So let me explain. In my corporate career, there was always a frustration of, you need to look at the next big thing, and somebody had a big idea and all the resources would be poured into it. And I think often quality suffers, the end user suffers. So, for right now, I really just focus one book at a time. But I would like to see our catalog and our base of authors grow and become more diverse.
Well, so when you say that, what are you looking for? Like, kind of what subjects would you look for or be interested in to expand that portfolio?
Well, it's interesting because right now we're working on a novel from a lesbian author. She's Yvonne Zipter. She's an award-winning poet, and she has written a novel. So we'll be coming out with our first lesbian-focused book. We'll also be coming out with a book. We have our first Latino author, Gerard Cabrera. He's Puerto Rican, and we're going to be publishing his first novel later this year. So, I want to see the characters become more diverse, the authors become more diverse. you know, and with that, we'd love to have more people of color and transgender people. But again, we're not going to publish anything just because. We're going to publish it because it's a quality work and it's a voice that deserves to be heard. And, I kind of come back to our mission, which is to bring overlooked voices to light. And that's still our mission, which is to bring those voices out into the light. But again, they have to be quality works.
Huh. Yeah. It's kind of strange. I don't know. I'm kind of not sure what to think of publishers now.
Why? What's your impression?
Well, I have a problem with. Well, I don't even know how to say this. I do a lot of nonfiction books, and I've had some really good successes and some not so good. But with 3 different publishers that I've had, they're all very, very straight. So I don't. There's no publishing fact. There's no publishing group that fits gay writers that are not writing about gay subjects.
We do.
Well, maybe you're as close as they come, but I don't really see it. But you might have. The ones I've come across aren't really outside of the gay community. And I say that not only, I haven't really looked closely, actually, so I don't want to get myself into trouble. But I also say that about the groups. Like, there's so many groups that are LGBTQ writers, and it's always male fiction or male, there's always these categories. But what I write is never allowed in any of these groups.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I couldn't post my book. And I've tried it a few times and realized, this isn't going to go well. So, because people are looking at the subject and they're not looking at the writer. So I get left out of almost all of the groups, in my experience. So I'm just I'm used to it by now. I'm not saying that I'm not trying to be a whiner here, but, I just say I'm used to it now because, that's just my experience.
Hmm. I could see how you could, how you would feel that way. I come back to, as far as I can tell, which is a gay author, and his sensibility is inserted into it, but it's not what I would call a traditional LGBTQ book. And I know that's what other publishers that Philip had spoken to had issues with. It wasn't history, it wasn't memoir, it wasn't gay.
Well, that's sort of what I mean. I'm not just picking on gay publishers or you or anything like that. What I'm saying is, in general, I find that over the years, I found it best to go to the group that sort of publishes that category, and I seem to have better luck with, and with that gets left behind my identity. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, and I think that's important, for the author. We're publishing a novel this summer by the playwright James Magruder. So he wrote the book for the musical on Broadway, Triumph of Love, and he also adapted the book for the musical Head Over Heels. I wouldn't call, there's a gay character in it, but I wouldn't call it, there's a gay man who's a character that some chapters or sections focus on, but I wouldn't necessarily call it a gay book. It is more about the lives, the evolution of relationships between a set of characters. So the fact that there's an LGBTQ character in it is fine, and the fact that he's a gay author. So, it's really, I guess for us, it's a work by work sort of decision that we make.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I just don't, like I said, so I've kind of always played it by ear, how I go, and it's worked out for the most part. But it's just I just never thought about going to a gay publisher anymore. How many gay publishers are there anyway nowadays?
Oh, I don't have a count. There aren't that many. It's kind of a dwindling, publishers have been going out of business. It's kind of a dwindling population. So I really couldn't say, but I understand the kinds of pressures they're under. Again, I come back to our business model that allows us to do what we do. So, my goal is that we break even, and we are actually making, we're doing better than break even. My goal is to not lose money, and it's to keep the cost per book for the project down, and we're able to do that very successfully. But this may be a bit of a tangent, because it's funny. I finally admitted when Philip and I, when we were editing his book, As Far as I Can Tell, towards the end, I revealed to him that he didn't know it, but he was actually in a software project. So, I took all of my product and project management experience, and that's the way I run it. So the language I use tends to be more software oriented than book publishing. So it's interesting. We have a very efficient model, and that allows us to take risks.
That's great. I mean, because that's a success. Because there is, like you said, a lot of the smaller publishers have not survived or not done well, and changing times. And I think a lot of it is probably to do with Amazon and that whole thing that's going on. And
well, Amazon's an important channel for us.
Oh yeah, it is. But what happens is something like Amazon. Like, don't get me wrong, they sell my books, but it becomes it's too much of the market. It becomes where it's their way or no way, and there's no regulation on what they release. Like, there's no gatekeeper, you would say. So you get everything being published. So the map is inundated with thousands of releases every month.
Oh yes, you have people choosing to self-publish. So I kind of look at the whole book process. Maybe I look at it differently. Again, I'm just now thinking, am I looking at it from more of a software perspective? But, so I, within a book, in self-publishing, even if you're in publishing a book, there are several things that have to happen. The book has to be edited. So you have to go through an editing process, and that could be either proofreading or line editing, where, you may start the editor may start pointing out word choice or questions about the plot. What's the character motivation as opposed to just proofreading. You then have cover design and you have book layout. All those are important. With self-publishing, those three often fall by the wayside.
Yeah, and that's a problem.
We also go to great lengths to make sure our covers are original. I'll never forget, I was at, it was 2 years ago at the LGBTQ Literary Festival, Saints and Sinners, in New Orleans, and they had like a sales room where, you could buy books from authors, and there were two different authors, same cover on their books because it was stock art. And so we tend to avoid that. So there is a lot that I think the publisher can bring to the equation. Self-publishing, and you have hybrid publishers that are kind of pay for play, where, you have to kick in some money and they kick in some money and it gets published. We're not that. We're a traditional publisher. We try not to, have an appetite that's bigger than our stomach. So again, it's about controlling costs, doing quality work with every project. So I don't know, so for Amazon, one of the things I know is that Amazon has the lion's share of the ebook market. So when it comes to ebooks, that's where we focus rather than on all other. So I mean, they do drive us in a way, but not completely.
Now, how do you find Audible? Or you've been doing a lot of Audible books?
I listen to Audible books. We do not do audiobooks because, again, it gets into, the risk versus reward. And for an audiobook, I know there are people doing it themselves, but I know I listen to audiobooks. Production quality is very important. So, like anything, and production quality can really hurt a book. I feel it's something that we'd have to hire people to do, and I just don't have confidence that we will make back our money or even break even. So it's something, I don't rule it out for the future, but it's something that we at this time are not doing.
Yeah. No, I understand that. Yeah, it can be pricey. Now, let's talk about what's new. What's the newest books that you have out now?
Well, the two new books that we have are Foreign Affairs, Male Tales of Lust and Love, by Daniel M. Jaffe, and I believe you interviewed him. And his book was his book, very exciting. It's a starred book in Kirkus Reviews, and Kirkus Reviews has included it in their top 100 best short story collections for 2020.
Wow, that's great.
So that's very exciting, and it's been submitted for a Lambda Literary Award, and is under consideration by the American Library Association whether it will be submitted. They will put it in to be to nominate it for a Stonewall Award from the American Library Association. So that's very exciting. We have out, I've mentioned several times, As Far as I Can Tell, Finding My Father in World War II by Philip Gamboni. Hopefully that may be nominated for a Lambda Literary Award. We're waiting to hear about that. But the exciting stuff that, it's interesting because to me, we released those books in October and November, and to me it seems like it's about 4,000 years ago. We're coming out with a new collection of short stories. It's being released on February 11th, and it's actually it's an expanded collection of short stories. So it's called How to Whistle by Greg Shapiro, and there are some stories that were published before and some brand new stories. So that collection of short stories is coming out on February 11th. And then I mentioned we're working on Yvonne Zipter's novel, Infraction. That should be coming out in the April-May timeframe, and that's a very exciting book. First of all, it's our first period novel. It's set in about 1876, St. Petersburg, Russia. And the story centers around three characters, one of whom is Marya, who is more interested in mathematics than her husband. And her desire is to become a mathematician, but at that time in Russia, women could not go to university, women could not study. She, through various political meetings, finds a partner, Vera, and Maria marries a man, Sergei, who is so in love with Maria that he'll even accept a platonic marriage. And it's an incredible novel. We're very proud that we're going to be bringing that out in the April-May timeframe. This summer, we're coming out with a novel by James Magruder, who is a playwright, Vamp Until Ready. And as I said, that focuses on the relationships and the evolution of 4 key characters. We're coming out with another history book, After Stonewall, by Saint-Suki Delacroix, and that's a follow-up to his first LGBTQ history of Chicago, Chicago Whispers. That was published by the University of Wisconsin Press, and that went from Chicago, from the explorers up until Stonewall. Chicago After Stonewall picks up the history after Stonewall through the first publication of a regular LGBTQ newspaper. Then we have Gerard Cabrera, Homo Novus. It's centered on a young seminarian who is Puerto Rican and an older priest who they've been having a relationship for a number of years. And that's another. I think that's a great novel. Very excited about that. And then last but not least, we're coming out with another illustrated book. So a couple of years ago, we came out with Saint-Suki's Strange Garden of Woodland Creatures. So that was written by Saint-Suki Delacroix, illustrated by the very talented artist Roy Alton Wald. And they're hard at work on Saint-Suki's Lunatic Asylum for Demented Toys, which is set in the village of Icing on the Cake, and it's about a lunatic asylum where crazy toys are brought to be fixed.
Santa's workshop.
Well, perhaps, but I'm amazed. I have seen it, and I've seen the art, and I'm amazed at what Saint-Suki Delacroix can write, and I'm even more amazed that artist Roy Alton Wald can illustrate it. But that's going to be a much more bolder move forward in our illustrated books. We're going to be taking a few more risks with that in terms of layout. It's going to be very exciting.
Yeah, it sounds like you've got a lot going on. Certainly, you've had some great books. And Foreign Affairs has got a great cover.
Oh, thank you. That's Phil's father standing in front of his tank. So Phil's father's on the cover standing in front of the tank. And that's a really, when we start getting into that and the subtleties of design. So we used Phil's father. I actually rummaged through an old suitcase I have of things from my parents from when my father was in the war. So I tried to match fonts to 1940s fonts or fonts that were in use during that period. So it was designed with a nod to 1940s styling. And it's probably our most, ambitious work to date because it is so thoroughly researched, and it has about 50 pages of endnotes. So that was that was a very ambitious effort on our part. We're very proud of Phil's book.
Yeah, he's a really nice guy. Actually, all of the authors I've spoke to so far have been really nice. I can't think of anything that. Yeah, they're all really nice. Daniel Jaffe, really, really nice. And Rick Carlin too, Paper Cuts.
Yes. Yeah, they're great. They're great people to work with. We also, again, it's something different, and I kind of go back to my software roots. It sounds weird that I'd go back to my software roots, but we have a highly collaborative approach. So there's almost, during the editing process, there's probably at least daily communication with the author where we're going back and forth. We're also, when it comes to the business side of things, we pay our royalties twice a year, and we provide a very detailed royalty statement for every channel that the book is sold through, be it Amazon, be it a third-party distribution. So I only know how we're different. My never having worked at a publisher or published a book before as an author, I only know how we're different based on what my authors tell us. And we strive to have a very, very high level of transparency and communication, because I don't want anyone to have any surprises or anyone to think that we're not reporting sales accurately. And you may know this, Alan, sometimes that can be a challenge for an author to either get their royalties or know what's been sold.
Yeah, I think quite a few of the authors, even myself, have had a bad experience to go back to, and I think it's almost part of the business. Unfortunately, there's always one in there in your history that you kind of don't want to look at, don't want to remember, But.
Well, it's. I think we're just more connected to our authors.
But that's good.
We don't have simultaneous. We're not capable of doing simultaneous projects, so we can't do parallel, projects, because it's a lot of the same resources, and So I think the authors get a higher level of attention, but I understand that I come from the business world. I come from the corporate world. I know how these things go, and you have an editor, you have a layout, you have all people that are under time crunches as well.
Yeah.
Our book is done when it's done.
How is this, the pandemic and all that, how is it done for you? And I mean that, and not only in sales, but I mean in, because there's a lot of things people can't do. There's not the book signings or the writer group meetings and all of that sort of thing going on. So does that kind of make it harder as well?
It certainly makes it challenging. We had plans, so a year ago, before we all went into isolation, at this time last year, I was preparing to go to Saints and Sinners in the LGBTQ Literary Festival in New Orleans. I was going to moderate a panel, and I was supposed to be a participant on a panel. It was going to be my big coming out as the public face of Rattling Good Yarns. I had intended it to be a networking event as well for me.
Right.
That didn't happen. We had been planning I had a venue lined up for October, this past October. We were going to have our writers, we were going to do on a Saturday afternoon an author series with our writers and public readings. We couldn't do that. I'm still struggling to figure out how to do that using something like Zoom and how to attract an audience.
Yeah.
Um,
I haven't seen much
so,
success.
and
Yeah.
oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I haven't seen much success in that sort of thing yet. I've seen different groups try it, and I don't know. It doesn't seem to be. I don't know. I'm not sure if that it works. You know, the whole Zoom and meeting or book party and all that online. It's I don't know.
My hesitation is if we did it and one or two people shows up, I'd rather not do it.
Right.
Because then it becomes just emotionally a letdown for everyone. So, I'm still trying to wrap my head around what we're going to do. And we're not going to do it until I feel that we're ready and I have some level of confidence.
Yeah. It's a big project to take on,
The other, something I notice with authors, like when they start promoting their own books, and it's really interesting. So when I went to the Saints and Sinner Literary Festival 2 years ago, many authors I heard the same thing, that publishers don't do a whole lot of promotion. It's left up to the author. Some of that I can see, because if we were to take out a $250 ad, well, I've got to be relatively confident that we're going to sell X number of books to recoup our investment. So, authors do we do promotion. It's not that we don't do promotion. But we're much more targeted and try to, control our expenses. But one thing I notice when authors promote their books on like Facebook, they're like afraid to do a call to action. Like buy the book. And it's interesting. I had a conversation with an author recently and, they had great comments. People were congratulating them, but I didn't see any sales. And I suggested maybe you should tell them congratulate you less and buy more. And in their next posting, they said, something like, show me some love. Here's the link to buy. And we had some sales.
Yeah.
So again, I go back to my background has always been in marketing. And I've done many different roles in marketing, and I find it interesting that people are just uncomfortable being direct with a call to action.
Well, it's an uncomfortable feeling. I'm that way myself, and I think writers don't buy into a lot of advertising. They've got an intelligence, and the problem is you see advertising and laugh at it and think it's silly, but for the most part, you don't jump at it. But they have to realize that a lot of people do.
No, I mean you have to have a call to action.
Yeah.
The call to action is nothing more than what is the person reading this? Is it just, oh, well, that's interesting, and they move on? Or are you asking them to do something? Like, you're promoting it. Maybe it's just my training. I just don't get asking for the sale. Yeah. You don't live on love. Now, we did do, it was in November, we started our quarterly newsletter, and we launched our first newsletter. And that was to people who subscribe to our newsletter. And for your audience, if they go to the Rattling Good Yarns website, it's rattlinggoodyarns.com, there is a mailing list, and you can sign up for the mailing list. And that was very successful because I could see from when we sent out the newsletter, I could see the direct sales. And we always like it when people come directly to us. But, I could monitor the Amazon sales and the direct sales that happened around the release of the newsletter, and I could see a spike.
Yeah.
So there was cause and effect. And I could see when this author posted on Facebook and said, "Show me some love, buy the book," I could see an order. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Don't think just because people click like or the heart or the hug, you have to tell them to open up their wallets and spend some money. As I say, congratulate less, buy more.
Yeah. Well, and it's a simple phrasing. Like, even if I'm posting about a show on Facebook or something, it's like, I'll have find out about, listen now, or,
Yes.
you have to put this, direction almost, and people will do it. If you don't, if you just post it, people will look at the picture and keep going,
Exactly.
So, yeah, and it feels silly, but I understand why writers don't do it, because it does feel silly to say, get your copy today, or write, something like that, because it feels like, well, why should I have to do that? But it's kind of I don't know, it's just a human behavior, and it works, and I'm not sure why. I don't know.
Well, Alan, I'm going to come back to what you said, that you're competing against more content in the marketplace.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
If you don't ask for the sale, someone else will.
Yeah, and someone else will get it. and I'm going to have to shoot them.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I'm terrible, Well, let's talk about how people find the books. So you said Rattling Good Yarns Press. And that's the best place to go.
It's Rattling Good Yarns Press. So it's rattlinggoodyarns.com. So they can go to our website, and we show what's coming out soon. You can order our books through the website. We offer free shipping. So anything bought through our website, we ship for free in the United States. You can go to Amazon. You can go to any online bookseller. You can go to your local independent bookseller. I'd be surprised if they stock the books, but they can order it for you if you want to support your local independent bookseller. You name it, and we are available. So if someone doesn't have our book, they can order it for you, and it's available through all the online bookseller channels.
Also, on your website, you have a buy a bundle and save as well. So you do have bundle. So when you buy a couple of books, you do get a discount.
Yeah, those are in the series. So we have the Spong series with, so it's the same books in the series. So the Spong series, the Blue Spong and the Flight from Mediocrity, and the Orange Spong and Storytelling at the Vamp Arts Cafe, that's a bundle. And then for Tell Me About It, we have we have a couple of bundles. So you save money by buying a bundle, and again, it's free shipping.
You can't go wrong with that.
No, and if you sign up for our newsletter, you'll get our newsletter. We do release promotional coupons from time to time for special discounts, sales we're running. So another great, and we only send out a newsletter quarterly because, I don't want to be in the habit of, just dropping things in people's mailboxes every few days. So it's a quarterly newsletter, and you can sign up for the mailing list by going to our website. You can also find us on Facebook under Rattling Good Yarns Press.
Are there any nude pictures that come with that, or?
Of who, me?
Anybody. Just thought I'd ask.
Well, it's interesting because I don't know if you've seen the cover of, you interviewed Daniel, Foreign Affairs, which is a shirtless guy posing with a globe, and a small globe at his crotch, and I am surprised at how provocative, and how that has delighted some people and have upset some people.
Well, I like it. But I think, it's a tough one because I don't think there's anything wrong with it. But what it does is it suggests, I think, sexuality, and that's always going.
Well, the globe casts a shadow.
Yeah.
And so when we did the photo session for that, there were about 110 photographs that were taken, and we chose one. And at no point that was completely unplanned. The sun just happened to be in that position in the sky, and nobody noticed that when we were taking the photographs. So it's pretty amusing. But I'll tell you something else that's amusing. We had a little bit of a spate of guys and women having their husbands taking, so guys having photographs taken and women taking pictures of the husband shirtless, the same thing, with like a little globe. So we had, which, with the globe, so it was like this, spoof on the Foreign Affairs cover, which I thought was wonderful. But getting back to nude photographs, no, I think that would have to be a special email request.
Oh, okay. Well, I thought I'd ask. That's all. I'm the advertising guy,
But I will tell you what I find very amusing is sometimes how in the course of the day I will shift gears. So I'll be fully immersed in the morning in Russia, St. Petersburg in Russia in 1876, and all this more period dialogue, and I'm very immersed in that, and then I'll switch gears to a manuscript about that takes place, a sex contest taking place in European bathhouses, and I'll switch from that to something set in the porn industry. And I just think, oh my God, to switch between some of these subject matters is...
Makes life interesting.
It does.
Well, we are coming out of time. It's been fun. Our guest has been Ian Henzel, and we're talking about Rattling Good Yarns Press. And, of course, anybody listening can find the website right from ours. Thank you for being here, Ian.
Well, we love your show, Alan.
To find out more about our show, guests, or to listen to past shows from our archive, please go to www.houseofmysteryradio.com.
The mission has been completed.
The end! By George, he's got it! It is the end!
I'll say it.
If you're lying to me, I'll be back.
This has been a production of Something Weird Media.